We're talking about the Troop Finance Tracker 3.0 Budget tab and a bit about the reimbursement form tab as well. Jumping right in, we see now we're on the Budget tab down here. It used to be called Budget Categories because this column B is really important. It has all of the categories that we want to be able to use on our Transactions tab. So when you put in a new transaction, everything on here, welcome back, he, me, father, daughter, whatever you want on here has to be in column B of the budget categories, now called budget, so that it's not as long down here. And like before, all of the yellow stuff is where I expect you to make changes, but you can make changes elsewhere as well, just be careful. So, welcome back picnic, you just start through and you just start here and you start changing things. Maybe you don't call it father, daughter, you call it he and me, for some girls don't have a father at home. And so you just start changing these numbers, and as you change this number, the goal is to get this one up here to 0. Your income minus your expenses. I've divided up, let's say we have a hiking day event. So you just type in something and we're going to do $40 for pavilion. And so you just keep typing things in. If you run out, if you need more space, I've divided them into event, insignia, and other. If you need more, then you can select, right click, insert, and now you have a new row, and it copied the formatting down, but it didn't copy the formulas. And we're going to talk about these formulas in a minute. But if you highlight the formulas that are already there as well as the blank spaces, and it says this right up here, and you see then highlight them and then do Control D. If I do Control D to fill down, now these formulas are in there as well. Now it might be in one section you don't need all of these spaces, like you have no other insignias you're going to get. So you could select these and then hide them, and now this is shorter. Okay, so that's how you can add and remove and change some of these. Now, some of these values, you see, like so far we've just been typing things in. We're gonna pay $150 so leaders can go to camp. Now some of these, like 450, why is that already in here? If you're ever wondering where a formula comes from, you can click on into the formula and you see how orange, purple, blue, and now it's the number of people times the badges per person times the cost per badge gives us $450. And if you want to ever get out of there, if you've looked at it, you can hit escape to get out of there. Now, why is it 30 people when there's 36 girls? So 36, it's adding up all of these girls. So why is it only 30? Well, let's see what that is. It's taking the number of girls minus the Pathfinders because Pathfinders don't earn badges. All right, well that makes sense. Now, in my troop, for example, we do badges and joining awards and level awards. That's all one badge category for us. And in my troop, we pay for 4 badges for the older girls, which is why Pathfinders aren't included. But we also pay for 2 of these things for Pathfinders because they earn their level award and their joining award. So if you want, you can change some formulas. You can get into these formulas. For example, here it's telling me the badges is this, and then I want to do plus the number of Pathfinders, so I'm clicking on there, times asterisk the number of joining awards and level awards per Pathfinder, which I randomly put here, times the quantity per, and then I do enter, and so now instead of 450 it's 495. Now let's say you have shipping and handling elsewhere. You don't charge, you don't budget for shipping and handling here. You can change this to 325 and now it's less here as well. Now sometimes you say, okay, well that's great, but actually service stars, we don't pay for 2 per girl, we pay for 5 per girl. Or you know what, we pay for every service star no matter how many a girl earns. So in that case, you can just go over, even though this is a formula, you can overwrite the formula and say we usually spend about $350 on service stars. Now, if you do overwrite a formula that's in a white cell, you might want to change the fill color to yellow, just as a reminder to yourself, this is no longer based on this formula. I can change these numbers all I want, and it's not changing this number because this is no longer a formula. So change the fill color then. So same thing down here, for example, the liter registrations. This is based on the amount per liter times the liters. Maybe you only pay for half of the liter registrations and they pay for the other half. Then you can type that and it'll change that one here. So, okay, I hope that makes sense. And here, same thing, unit supplies. If you pay $10 per girl, now there's a whole bunch more in these unit supplies. Oh, and these patriots. Oh, right, because we have no patriots right now. One thing I'll mention real quick, so the girl numbers, you can type that in, like we're expecting 5 patriots this year. These little numbers here are from the families tab, which I'll have a whole nother thing about, but you can type in the actual numbers of your actual girls from your actual families, and then if you want to see what those numbers are, you can, that's what these numbers are. Okay, moving on down, we do need to somehow pay for all of these expenses, and that's in the incomes area. And this is where I did have some trouble. I wasn't sure. I think this is kind of the general way that most troops do it. A lot of troops, they collect troop dues. Sometimes they collect less per Pathfinder because they don't earn badges or stars. They maybe can't do all of the events that the older girls can do, although I don't know. A lot of troops, they can do up to 3 fundraisers. Maybe they have a profit goal per fundraiser. This isn't at all how my troop does it. We don't do any troop dues. We do all of our fundraising, income through fundraising or fundraising buyouts. And so this section looks different for me, and I'm trying to figure out, like, is it different for a lot of other troops? And maybe I should just have, I don't know how to do this, if I should have 2. I'm not sure, but so if you have any comments on that, let me know. And then this last section here, here's a note. What is this in and out? In our troop, the amount of money that comes in for these categories is, or at least should be, exactly the same as the money that goes out. So we collect girl registration on registration night, and then we send it all to the national office. We collect the program support fee also on girl registration night, so that if girls quit in October or November or whatever, and they're like maybe they quit in December, but we've already been assessed for them, and then in March we're paying a program support fee for them, so we just collect it at the beginning. And then same thing for the rest of these. If that's not the case for you, just put Faith Awards. Maybe you pay for them through fundraising, then put them up here under insignia. That's fine. You can add them back in right here under insignia. Okay, so that's just the way we do it. So eventually, though, between your income and your expenses, you want to get this number down to 0. And then you have a nice balanced budget, and you're using up all the money that you anticipate bringing in. Now, as you go through the year, this is all great to come up with these numbers, but how is it actually working? So that's why I have this actual and the difference. So as you add transactions and you apply them to a category, that will show up then. For example, here's my unit supplies for Tender Hearts. If we go back to budget and look under unit supplies Tender Hearts, I have, ooh, that's a lot. Let's put that back down to 5. So I have $60 budgeted. I've spent 12. I have 47 left. Okay, so that's how that works, so that you can see, is this budget actually working? Now, what if you want to print this budget? Maybe you're going to print it out for to give to your parents at registration night, or you want to print it out for a board meeting. So, and this is listed here in this area. One way to do this is I'm going to click and drag, or click and shift click on all of the items that I want to have printed. So I don't want to print these instructions. I don't want to print this mess down here. So I have that, and now I click on my print button. And to start with, it's giving me a lot more than that. So under print, change it from current sheet to selected cells. And now I'm only printing that part here. Now I do want to mention under formatting, by default, sometimes this show notes is on, and these notes, remember I told you that what is in and out, and I hovered over and it showed me that note, this number 1 right here, or number, whatever that is. So in that case, if you make sure that that's off, show notes under formatting is off, then it will not show those notes, and you could hit next and then print it or save it as a PDF. But I'm going to cancel. Another way to print it though is on the setup. I talk about this this list, this document here shows, here it is, it shows how to make a separate budget, and I'll show you on mine then. What you can do is make this separate one so that I have it listed on our troop track. It's a link that leaders or parents can click, and it's a one-page thing that nobody can change anything, and it's just this one page. It doesn't have any of the instructions, and it's easy to print and distribute. So that'll have a separate, I'll make a separate video on how to do that. So that's about printing. All right, another important thing before we finish is the reimbursement form. I want to touch on that because it has to do with the budget. There's some budget tab stuff. You see these little asterisks here, and here's a note about it. You type an asterisk next to anything that you want to appear. So if we click on the reimbursement form over here, you can see all of these categories are in here. And maybe I don't want people, oh, you know what, the supplies, unit supplies, last year we had Pioneers and Patriots together. But this year on my budget, I gave it a separate line items because they're going to be separate, and Patriots aren't on there. So I add in a asterisk here, and now if we go on to reimbursement form, now the Patriots are on there. So that's so that people know what to add into these categories. Some of this stuff comes from the setup. Remember on here, we put stuff in here, and so that's why that shows up. If you don't like any of this stuff, feel free to change it. Maybe you never, you always mail all your reimbursements. You could just get rid of this. You could delete these cells, shift up, okay, and then we'll make this page this thing a little bit bigger. So feel free to change this, move things around, retype other stuff. Maybe you don't have a treasurer box, maybe you have a treasurer file, so just go ahead and change that, whatever you want to do. And then when it comes time, you can either print it onto via your printer, or you can also save it as a PDF if you wanted to upload it somewhere online for people to be able to download and print off for themselves. So that is essentially most of what I wanted to talk about. So there is one more thing I'll mention if you want to keep watching, what these little things at the bottom are for. In fact, these things should be yellow because they don't have to be in here. This is just something I did. So split has to be in here because I'll talk about that when we talk about the transactions tab. The next program year and previous program year, some people have asked me, how do you go from year to year? So what I do is sometime in June, July, August, I have my one from this program year, and then I'll start the one for the next program year, and I'll give it the new, so now it would be 22, 23. But sometimes, like right now, we're in September now, and I finally finished up in August, I finally finished up last year's stuff. But one of that included, and I already had started this year's as well because we were starting to collect registration fees and things like that. So I actually had 2 files going, and some of the transactions that I wanted on the register, because they're going to show up for reconciliation, some of them went on last year's budget, and some of them went on this year's budget. And so that's why I have previous program year and next program year. If it's a transaction, I put it on both of my files, I give it the category in the year that it belongs to, and in the other file, I either put it as next program year cost or previous program year because I don't want it affecting the budget. So that's it for the budget and the reimbursement form. I hope that was helpful.